Hey everyone, welcome to Insights with Benny, a space where ideas meet action, where stories inspire reflection, and perspectives challenge the status quo. Whether you're here for clarity, challenge, or quiet wisdom, this is your place. Today's episode is titled Polished Brass, Broken Compass. When Leadership Charms but Misguides. A polished resume, a booming voice, a magnetic presence. Phil had it all, but leadership isn't a show. It's a burden. Charisma without direction leads to misaligned leadership. As always, these are straight from the heart of Insights blog. Let's begin. Lessons in Leadership. Part 2. A charming voice can win a room, but only steady hands can steer a mission. Smoke, mirrors, and hope. At Rehoboth National Institute, leadership was more than a job title. It was a trust, a weight, a call to safeguard legacies, steer complexity, and hold the line between ambition and principle. Over the years, I encountered many leaders under that roof. Some were builders, quiet, methodical, deeply connected to the mission. They didn't seek the spotlight, they lit it for others. Some were fire starters, restless and catalytic. Their presence shook systems and birthed renewal. Others were caretakers, gentle hands who preserved the soul of the organization with grace. And then there were the performers, polished, persuasive, magnetic. The kind who could breathe oxygen into a room, but leave it emptier than before. They didn't lead with vision, they led with volume. And when tested, they unraveled. One such figure was Phil Jordan. But before Phil Jordan's chapter unfolded, there was the slow drift. The void before the storm. After the former CEO, a leader known for clarity and consistency, stepped down, the board made a hasty appointment from within. She was one of the directors, competent in her job and on paper, but uninspired in practice as a leader. She ran the organization with the enthusiasm of a weekend gardener, present in name, absent in soul. You wouldn't trust her with a flower bed, let alone a legacy institution. The plants would wither under her gaze. Staff disengaged, partnerships frayed, the organization dimmed. Hope faded like paint on a neglected wall. The board panicked, and that's when Phil entered the spotlight. Enter the showman. Phil Jordan was unforgettable. He wasn't particularly tall or imposing, but he commanded attention the moment he walked in. He floated into rooms with practiced grace and magnetic ease. He was the kind of man who didn't speak at people. He performed to them. Charisma followed him like perfume. Every gesture choreographed, every word dipped in honey. He could sell you a dream with a handshake and convince you it was your own idea. He had that rare salesman charm, the kind that could sell frost to an Eskimo and have them write him a thank you letter afterwards. He had the energy of a political candidate, the flair of a startup CEO, and the shine of someone who knew exactly what to say, especially when the cameras were rolling. With boldness and a megawatt smile, Phil pitched visions like TED Talks. He wasn't new to Rehoboth. He had been around in various capacities, briefly advising the former CEO, sitting on regional boards, and even contributing ideas to early reforms. He also had a resume garnished with political roles, a private firm, political activism, a religious minister, and a brief military stint he liked to remind people of. If he were a movie character, he'd be the renegade outsider who swoops in to save the day, minus the realism of doing same. He launched a national charm offensive aimed at the sector's least favored players, had town halls, strategy rollouts, and vision casting with theatrical flair. He singled out a notoriously difficult funding agency as the villain, promising to sever ties and lead Rehoboth into glorious independence, which will usher in a new era. Staff applauded. Partners were intrigued. Finally, someone who looked like leadership, they said. But no one asked, with what plan? With what resources? Big promises, no blueprint. Once appointed, Phil moved fast. He expanded the staffing structure dramatically, creating shiny new executive roles. He negotiated a jaw-dropping personal compensation package, convincing the board he would unlock new income streams and make it rain in the drylands. His first official act? Overspend. Projects were asked to contribute more to overheads to fund the new structure. Control was centralized. Departmental autonomy was trimmed like dead weight. Everything and everyone now needed Phil's nod. And then the spectacle expanded. He relocated Rayabana's offices to upscale, unnecessarily expensive parts of the cities. New cars arrived. New office furniture replaced perfectly usable ones. Equipment was refreshed, even though existing contracts were still running. Some vendors were paid twice for the same services. It felt like an episode of Oprah. You get a printer, you get a phone, you get a fancy title. Yeah. Imagine a man buying luxury roofing for a house he hasn't designed, or taking out a loan to install a chandelier in a restaurant that doesn't have a foundation. That was Phil. He cooked up gourmet meals with eggs meant for hatching. Guests dined well, but the farm was now barren. Cracks behind the curtain. The illusion held for a while, but even the thickest curtains can't hide a collapsing stage. Projects began to stall, budgets bled, implementation delays became routine, resources ran thin, salaries were delayed, statutory payments suspended, and pension investments tampered with. Financial reports turned into works of fiction. Yet Phil, aided by a complicit finance director, kept the board distracted with dazzling presentations and manicured reports. He refused to accept responsibility. When performance lagged, he blamed project managers, regional teams, the funding model, anyone but himself. Instead of course correcting, he doubled down. His decisions became more erratic, as if overconfidence could cover for collapse. A few of us directors grew deeply concerned. We asked questions. We probed reports. We pushed for answers. Phil shrugged us off. Visionaries are always misunderstood, he'd say. But the cracks had widened beyond denial. The illusion falls apart. Eventually, the board ordered an independent inquiry. It didn't take long for the damage to surface. There were contracts paid in duplicate, staffing layers that made no sense, strategic moves that hemorrhaged funds, projects derailed due to inflated overheads. Phil had manufactured an empire of image, built on spending, not sustainability. The inquiry made the board grasp the true magnitude of the damage. To them, it was like realizing that you ordered a camel, but a llama was delivered. Camels are strong, dependable, desert-ready animals. You needed one for your desert experience, but llamas are charming and fluffy, not fit for hauling burdens across the heat for your desert experience. Cute? Yes. Strategic? Definitely not. Phil had delivered charisma where competence was required. The compass was broken from day one, but the brass had been polished so well, no one saw it wobbling. Course correction? When the truth could no longer be hidden, Phil was relieved of his duties. But he didn't go quietly. True to form, he went public, issuing statements, granting interviews, stirring rumors. He painted the board as the villain, the organization as the failing ship, and himself as the betrayed visionary. It was classic distraction theater. If I go down, I'm taking the whole stage with me. But the damage had been done. The board asked me and another director to lead the turnaround. Rebuilding from the wreckage required more than structure. It demanded soul work. We pulled the curtain back. We reviewed contracts, closed loopholes, realigned staff, and refocused the mission. We sat with teams, listened to frustrations, and rekindled trust. Where Phil had promised lightning, we lit candles, small, steady, and real. In the process, a foundation of trust was laid, quietly, consistently over time. It was that trust that eventually led the board to appoint me as CEO. I went on to steer the organization through seasons of stability and renewed purpose. And even after I stepped down and left, I continued to serve as an honorary board advisor. still carrying a quiet flame for the vision we fought to protect. The real test of leadership. Phil Jordan taught us one of the hardest truths in leadership. Charisma is not capacity. A spotlight doesn't illuminate substance, and a loud voice isn't a plan. Leadership isn't what you say at press conferences. It's what you begin doing the morning after your appointment. It's not how you impress the crowd. It's how you steady the ship when the applause fades. Brass may polish well, but if the compass is broken, the shine only hides the drift. The mark of real leadership is not how loudly you speak, but how consistently you act. It's not about being right in the room. It's about being aligned with the mission when no one is watching. Let your words carry the weight of your values. Let your actions speak before the applause. And let your leadership be visible from the very first decision. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share them on social and tag me with #PolishBrass. Please subscribe to my channels. Like, share, and help spread the message. Until next time, stay reflective.